What would it be worth to you if you never had to worry again about competing based on price alone? Knowing this valuable information that I'm about to share with you before you craft your next sales or marketing message can help you to influence your customer to decide quickly and make your price a non-issue. If your sales process is currently taking too long, this information is going to be priceless. If your customers need to think about doing business with you, this insight will help you stop boring and overwhelming them. If your customers keep asking you for a better price, I'm going to show you how to get the price that you deserve. Let's begin. I know you will find these strategies to be practical and powerful. We now know that there are 3 distinct parts of the brain, and each one of them has a very different function. However, only one of them is responsible for decision making, and it fires up about 8 seconds before you are consciously aware that you have even made a decision. The research and information that I'm about to share with you hasn't come from psychology, the personal development industry, or even a marketing agency. These findings were made by neuroscientists, medical doctors studying the brain, brainwave activity with fMRI machines. They were looking to find which part of your brain lights up when it is presented with different stimuli. And the findings have been documented and published in respected publications like the Wall Street Journal and the Harvard Medical Journal. To make it easier for you to understand and remember, I thought it might be a bit fun to have a little show and tell. So the biggest part of the brain right here is the neocortex. We are the only species on the planet that has developed this part of the brain. It's the last thing that forms in the womb, and it lights up when we listen to music, look at colors, speak, read, and process numbers. If you ever hear people talking about the right versus left brain thinking, they are talking about the neocortex. In a nutshell, it thinks. Similarly, when your customer says, "I need to think about it," or "Is this the best price I can get?" this part of the brain is firing up and it's looking for data. This uses up tons of your brain energy and it prolongs the decision-making process. So if you want to drag out the process of getting your customers to decide or compete based on price, you want to make sure that your customer has to use this part of his brain. Make sure that you give your customer lots of big words, numbers, graphs, lists of features and benefits. Talk about your competitors and how you stack up next to them, and your customer will not decide. That is guaranteed. But he will do a whole lot of thinking and take up more of your valuable time and energy as well in the process. Now let's move on to the middle part of the mammalian part of your brain. That's right here. It's the part that we share with every other warm-blooded creature on the planet. This is where you process emotions and you feel things. But it's not where you make decisions. Do you see this spot right here? At the top of your spinal cord, there's a collection of neurons, which are commonly referred to as the old or the reptilian brain. This is the first part of your brain that is formed in the womb, and it's the part that keeps you alive. All bodily functions that take place below the level of consciousness are controlled by this part of your brain. It's your fight or flight brain, and its sole responsibility is to ensure your survival. It houses the amygdala, which is the chemical factory in your brain that regulates all bodily functions. And it's the part of your brain that lights up when you decide. It lights up even before you have conscious awareness that you have even made a decision. Now, while it is very true that this is the most primitive part of your brain, the good news is this: it's very predictable. By understanding how this part of your brain works, you will never again bore and overwhelm your customers, and you will never again be lured into the trap of competing based on price. How are you going to do this? By understanding how this part of your brain and this part of your customer's brain works, you can help him to use the least amount of mental energy in processing your message, which means that he will make quicker decisions. It is important to remember that unlike the neocortex up here, the thinking part of your brain, this part of your brain is automatic. It does not think. It only decides and acts. It is always at work, scanning your environment, looking for information of value to your survival. So you might be wondering, how does this apply to the price that you charge for your product or your service? Just for a moment, I want you to imagine that you're in the business of selling pizzas. Now, it doesn't matter whether your business is called Pizza Hut, Domino's, Eagle Boys, Boston Pizza, or even Pizza World. You are basically selling an undifferentiated product, and the market that you find yourself in looks pretty price conscious, doesn't it? The reason for that is simple. The customer finds it hard to distinguish between your pizza and the next guy. Now, if you happen to be the owner of Chicago Deep Dish Pizza, you might even argue that your pizza is better because your crust is thicker and you provide more toppings and value. But in the eyes of the consumer, your customer, your pizza is still not really worth much more than the next guy's pizza. You might be charging $20 and your competitor is charging $18.50. Why is that? It's because even though you think there is a difference, in the eyes of your customer, there isn't. 95% of what you and the next guy offer are essentially exactly the same thing. And as long as you keep operating in that zone with a marketing message that doesn't stand out and stake a claim, you will continue to compete on price because your customer is up in his neocortex trying to figure out which pizza is the best one to order. So knowing this, what could you do differently? Well, one company in 1973 identified a way to stand out and grab market share. It didn't claim to have the best, the thickest, or even the cheapest pizza. It just made one promise, that if you ordered from them, you would get it in 30 minutes or your pizza was free. It was the most successful campaign in the history of the industry for good reason. Think about it. When you order a pizza, what is the one question that you have in the back of your mind? I wonder when the pizza's going to get here, isn't it? Domino's answered that question for you. They stopped making you need to think about it, and they triggered the part of your brain that decides and dials. This is the power of sales seduction. Understanding why your customer says yes and helping him to say yes to your product and service. Can you see now how knowing this information can help you accelerate your sales process, close more business, trigger a decision, and allow you to charge a fair price for your product or service? Great. So your homework today is to go back through one of your sales or marketing messages and identify all of the ways that you have been boring and overwhelming your prospects. The key to not competing on price ever again is to making it easier for your customers to say yes.